What's going on, y'all? Let's take a trip to Motown to discuss what these Detroit Pistons are going to do with the 5th overall pick in this year's NBA draft. I think there are a couple different options they could go here, different routes, and obviously it will depend on how the first four picks shake out before them. But let's kind of break down what we're looking at for Detroit at 5. Now, I think trading up is going to seem pretty unlikely, especially within, the top 3. It seems like, just the kind of state that Orlando, OKC, and Houston are in, they're going to want that top talent, and I don't think, future assets are really going to, dissuade them from a top 3 pick, especially the way the lottery works. You're never guaranteed a top 3 pick, despite how bad you may be. So top 3 pick, I think they're all pretty happy with any of those top 3 prospects, whether it be Jabari, Chet, or Paolo Banchero. So Detroit probably not going to be able to sneak in there. Now, 4 could be a different story. It seems like Sacramento is definitely willing to shop that pick. Now, it's really just moving up 1 for Detroit. So it really is all going to boil down to how much Detroit likes Jade Ivey, because for all intents and purposes, it seems like Sacramento is really, what they're doing is saying Jade Ivey's not going to get past 4, so if you want him, you're going to have to come trade up for him, with us. And so that's where Detroit kind of is going to have to, explore if they really are smitten with Jade Ivey. Now, they have the Jeremy Grant piece. What his value is kind of, nebulous, especially where we saw Christian Wood basically go for a late first-round pick. And, you could argue Christian Wood might be better on paper than Jeremy Grant, maybe not as valuable because of what Grant can do defensively. It's a similar scenario in which both are on expiring contracts. Grant is going to make around $20 million this year, but then a team that's trading for him is going to have to extend him to keep him. And so, that kind of impacts his value in terms of, is he the kind of guy that you want on a winning team? Can he prove he can be, kind of a third option? Kind of remains to be seen. Sacramento could use a guy like that, someone that, you can pair with Sabonis in the front court, that can defend, that can score a little bit, and he's proven, to have a lot of talent offensively through his time in Detroit. So it makes sense for Sacramento. Whether he's, I think Detroit could probably get more for him, just like in an individual trade. But if they feel it's, it's really Jeremy Grant for Jade and Ivey, or, it's Jeremy Grant and whoever they would take at 5, whether it be, Shaedon Sharpe or Keegan Murray, whatever that might be. If they really feel like Jaden Ivey is kind of a generational talent, perennial all-star type guy, you'd think it might be worth it. So that all kind of depends on how, Troy Weaver and company, how they view Jaden Ivey. So that's an option. Now, they could also, because, Detroit kind of has more runway for the development, they're not trying to win immediately, and because, having a franchise cornerstone in Cade Cunningham, as versatile as he is on both sides of the ball, you can pair almost any of these prospects with him in the backcourt, and you could totally see it, especially with Jaden Ivey. Cade on defense will cover some of, Ivey's shortcomings, and then on the offensive side of the ball, Cunningham's ability to distribute and kind of, really take advantage of what Ivey can do, getting him open looks, getting him out in transition, some off-ball cutting and off screens, things like that. Could totally see it working out with Ivey and Cunningham. And then obviously, you add Sadiq Bey into that conversation, and you have, a great young core. Now they have to answer questions about Killian Hayes' future. There's Kelly Olynyk that you would imagine would get dealt at some point. And, in the front court in general in Detroit is not great. Isaiah Stewart is someone I think will be able to contribute to a winning team. Whether he's the starting center or power forward remains to be seen. But that is something they can address further down the road, because at 5, don't think there's going to be someone you can put in your front court that makes sense there. So, having said all that, I think if Ivy does go 4, Pistons sit at 5, I think Shaedon Sharpe makes a ton of sense in terms of, he's unknown, but a ton of upside. So, Detroit can give him that time to develop. Not interested in winning now necessarily. You pair him with Cade Cunningham, who already can kind of run the offense and really try and, exploit what Sharpe can do offensively. And with Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, kind of those defensive-minded guys, Sharpe doesn't have to necessarily be, a stopper right away. So I think you're happy either way. Keegan Murray will probably also be available at that point. Just because he's more refined, maybe lower upside than those other guys, doesn't make as much sense here at 5 for Detroit, but still wouldn't hate that pick because he's really solid, and I actually like him even if Sacramento took him at 4. It makes a lot of sense for them. And, I'm someone who you hear a lot about teams don't draft for fit, draft kind of best available, and then figure it out. I think in kind of on paper that makes a lot of sense. Like, why wouldn't you just take the most talented guy? And it's kind of so you don't regret it, because you're gonna say, oh wow, that guy was really talented, we passed on him because we just drafted for fit. But I think it's a lot harder to try and make it all work, quote unquote, versus trying to draft fit and help kind of excel them in that role. And there's already minutes there if there's a role there. I think it makes a lot of sense. Maybe you hinder some of their upside, maybe you don't. I mean, it's a case-by-case thing, so we don't know. But Detroit here can offer a lot for development, a lot for minutes. Makes a lot of sense. So I would say it really depends on how they feel about Ivy and if they can work something out with Sacramento. I think it could be mutually beneficial for both of them if Detroit moves up and the Kings move back 1. But it's just a matter of, how do the Pistons compensate Sacramento for that move? So we'll have to check that out and kind of keep our ear to the ground to see what goes on there. But let me know what you think. What should Detroit do with the 5th overall pick? And that'll do it for me. Take it easy, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.